Okay, so let's go ahead and get started because we are running a bit behind. Thank you everyone for joining. We can just go around and just give short introductions. If we want to start with Lexi, let's just go right next to me.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Lexi. I'm 18. I am currently a high school senior. I will be attending Ball State University in the fall, and I participated in Connecting the Dots, which is a film about youth mental health. So, Jojo, if you want to go, just kind of go around the square.
Okay. Hello, my name is Jojo Brew. I'm currently in the 12th grade. I'm a transgender male. I go by he, him. And when I graduate, I'm going to go further my knowledge in film and photography. I'm going to Bard, and I work for the Urban Health Media Project, and I'm the photographer and the videographer for them.
Well, hi, Lexi. Hi, Jojo. Hi, Sierra. My name is Calix. It's so good to meet you all. I'm really excited to be here. I've been working with Amwell for about 4 years now, and I'm a therapist, and I've been working in communities of color for 15 years, specifically in the LGBTQ plus community, also with the BIPOC community, basically any marginalized group, I've worked with them. And I'm just excited to be here and to be able to answer your questions. I can't hear Sierra.
Yeah. Is your mic on?
Sorry about that. I muted it. My name is Sierra Luder. Thank you guys for introducing yourself. Welcome to our Therapy Thursday. So tonight we have Calix and as well as two students, Lexi and Jojo, who will be talking to us tonight. I'm a part of the project. I've been a part of the project for about 4 years. I go to NYU. I'm a junior there, and I'm into film and art, and definitely very passionate about mental health as well. Sorry, I have to catch my breath a bit. I was rushing around. But for tonight's Therapy Thursday, as I just mentioned, we will be covering LGBTQ youth and just that realm as far as mental health. So tonight we have Calix here. So as Calix just said, she is a therapist, and we're just gonna ask one second. Sorry, it seemed like the connection just went out. Okay.
We can see you and hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. It just seemed like it went out for a second. I'm so sorry. So for tonight's Therapy Thursday, we'll be here, and I'm gonna ask Calix just a couple questions, just to get us starting to think, because as we got into, mental health is such a broad topic. And especially as we get into this realm of therapy and therapists, and I'm just sticking to our time frame of it only being 30 minutes, and we're running a bit behind. The questions that we're going to ask, or that I'm about to ask, are just to get people thinking, or just about certain situations or scenarios that you or people you know could be into or could be dealing with. That Lexi or Jojo will also add on later. So the first question I have, I'm sorry, for Calix.
Sierra, you're doing great. Take a breath.
I need to take a breath. I'm sorry.
You need a second. Yeah.
Just need 1 second. I was rushing a bit. So just to tell everyone, I was rushing a bit around just trying to get the Wi-Fi together. And then I was just tired and I was running around. But honestly, it really just all goes into what this is about and my anxiety and working through it. I know for me, I struggle with anxiety, and during COVID, it's something that I have had to deal with, and I've had to really confront, and I think a lot of people have had to confront that. And so one thing I do is a deep breath, and we're just starting fresh. We're in this moment, and it did help me get and remember my first question, Calix, which is, as people deal with, their thoughts and their mental health, and we deal with these questions of handling these hard thoughts, and we're working through our problems, and we're sitting and working through our anxiety. My first question would be for people, is there any advice or just things you would lead to people if they're working through a difficult thought, and how to stop those thoughts, or how to work out those thoughts more just within themselves in a healthy manner?
Well, so therapy is a place where you can do those exact things. You can slow yourself down a bit, be able to have a space where you're I think that particularly in the pandemic, there's been so much frenetic energy, right? People are just constantly having to deal with change. And especially young people, right? Like if you were a student and maybe you were living on campus, now suddenly you have to move home. Maybe your parent has, lost income, and so you're having to supplement. And so there's so many things that have been creating anxiety, issues of depression in young people. And so I feel like, while it would be wonderful to be like, okay, well, here's some solutions, right? Here's some I would love to be able to say, all right, Sierra, what you can do is X, Y, and Z. And unfortunately, the thing is that mental health is a really complex thing, right? Everyone has different stuff that's weighing on them. And so why I'm saying being able to have a place where you're able to slow down and think and talk to somebody who you feel is there for you, who's got your back, who is going to support you in thinking through kind of some of the stress that you're going through, the anxiety that you're going through. That's really going to be key to being able to kind of come up with solutions for yourself that are going to make sense for you, right? Because it's not, one solution is not for each person.
Yes, and that's very true. And I mean, as we go into understanding the importance of therapy, right, and why do we need therapists, can you navigate, for maybe there are young people on the live or people who are thinking about therapy but don't really know how to navigate that conversation with their parents? As we know, as we're focusing on this, we are focusing on people of color and LGBTQ, so more minorities. And as we get into those groups, therapy and mental health, unfortunately, it's not as broad as a topic. I know I have done a lot of thorough research on the code of silence within the Black community and how that relates to, people not talking and how us not talking about our issues or how minorities not going to therapy definitely does further generational trauma and a lot of issues. So knowing that and knowing that there's a lot of stigmas behind it, what advice would you give to someone who may want to open up that conversation with their parents, but their mom or dad might be like, you're crazy, or why do you need that? And kind of just expressing more the importance of maybe why everyone needs therapy. That's first thing that I think. But just more so just some advice on navigating that conversation for someone.
First, I just want to acknowledge how much pain and how painful it can be to be LGBTQ plus and any of those designations, and to try to be who you are. Like, let's say you're finally feeling like you're in your own skin, and then you're trying to be able to interact with your family. And your family's having maybe some difficulties around being able to accept you or being able to even have a language to talk with you about things, right? Because I think language really matters. And so I think that you're asking, how do you address stigma with your family?
Well, how would you navigate that conversation? Like if parents, just expressing, I guess, the importance of it, or maybe a child, or just dealing with the importance just of therapy. And I guess you're right, it's just about, the importance of it, but more so if there's a student or someone who's thinking about therapy, because a lot of people don't even know how to get a therapist or how to find a therapist. So my question is, one, how would you navigate that conversation with the parent and expressing the importance of it, like you just said? And then two, also, how do you go about getting therapy? Because as a young person, I know we see a lot of apps, or just in general, we see a lot of apps where we see things like Calm, or we see certain therapists that may happen through Instagram. But how do you actually go about finding a therapist to have those online or one-on-one conversations?
Yeah. I'm going to be real honest and say that I think it would be wonderful if youth of color could go to their families, whether you're Black, Asian, Latinx, whatever, whatever group you're a part of, and to be able to say, hey, mom and dad, I'm thinking about, or parents, I'm thinking about getting help for myself. But as most of us know, and even for myself, when I went through that journey for myself as well, parents weren't really necessarily a source of allyship. And because they have all their own feelings about mental health and getting help. What does it mean to ask for help and then to share all these things that are going with you that they would normally keep private, right? And so I actually think if young people are wanting to get that kind of support, first of all, being able to identify the number one thing that is going to make therapy a positive experience is being able to locate and determine for yourself what you would need from a therapist provider in order to feel safe, held, seen, valued, right? Because in a lot of the lived experiences of LGBTQ plus folks is that there's just so much devaluation of who we are, so much trauma. And so having a therapist who's going to be able to really see you and they don't have to be LGBT to do that, right? It's really like, does this person get it? And so that's going to be kind of for each person, again, a different fit. Oh, I can't hear you. Your mic is out.
Maybe Lexi and Jojo, you guys can also just add in your experiences with therapy, and from your perspective, and how has it helped you, and even as far as your friends, do most of your friends go to therapy? How is that conversation like? Do you see a difference in how you deal with things versus how they deal with things? So one of you could go first if you like.
I'll just kind of jump in. I started seeing a therapist right after my suicide attempt. So it was mandated at first, and then I kind of got into the groove of therapy. And the one thing that I would say is very important is to make sure that you feel comfortable with your therapist, because if you don't feel comfortable, then you're not going to make a lot of progress just because you're not going to open up. And I would say that is definitely the most important part about therapy, is finding the right therapist. It took me a couple of tries, a couple of different therapists to find the right one. And as far as between my friends and I think everyone just needs someone to help them discover ways that they can cope with what's happening. So, when COVID hit and everything kind of exploded, our world flipped upside down, I knew myself and I could cope with that. And I had multiple friends who didn't necessarily have that resource. So it's definitely important to still reach out and talk to someone if you're struggling, or in times like this when we can't meet in person because there's a pandemic going on. So that would be my advice.
And then also maybe because I just see a question of, is teletherapy or virtual support as beneficial as face-to-face? So maybe someone else could jump in. I could say for me, I have a bit of experience with therapy, but I just had my first teletherapy session about 3 weeks ago. And it was definitely, for me, I would say it was a different experience, but it was more so like being on FaceTime with a friend. I know I would personally like a face-to-face better, but it definitely, at least for me, it felt like a regular phone conversation, but maybe someone else could also explain.
I would just jump in here real quick and say that if I personally find teletherapy, and I've been doing it for 4 years, it's not the same as brick and mortar, but in terms of giving people access, particularly people who, our students are on the move, young people are on the move. There's also like a lot of things that are unexpectedly can happen that it makes it really accessible at any time, that, whether it's the scheduling of it or being able to just get to it. I think that part is really important. And I would also say that if you're working with a teletherapist and it's not feeling like a good fit, it's important to advocate for yourself, and don't work with somebody who doesn't really therapist vibes out there. So get one that works for you.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in. I saw a question and it was, how do you know when you've found the right therapist? So for me, I went to a male therapist first, and I quickly realized that it wasn't the right vibe I needed. We didn't click, we didn't have that connection. I struggled opening up, and that's when I was like, okay, I think I want to try a female therapist. So at the time, she was actually doing my group therapy sessions, and then I transferred over doing individual therapy with her. And talking to her was easy, and that's the best way I can put it. If you feel comfortable opening up to a person and confiding in them, then I would say that you found the right therapist. If something still feels off, then I would say maybe keep going. It's totally a personal preference, totally up to you, but that's more of an individual thing.
Yeah, so I definitely think a lot of the things we're hearing here is a lot of it seems like it's trial and error. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lexi or Calix, with getting a therapist. And I do also want to go a bit back to our scenarios, because I'm sorry if I didn't introduce it correctly. I was rushing a bit, but the whole purpose behind this was to give people different scenarios that could be happening in your life. And Calix is just going to explain a bit for just some advice that she might give, or general starting cues to help people who may be going through a certain situation. Because of the pandemic, a certain situation is many people are coming back home. And if we're talking about students or younger people or young adults, there could be a disconnect between your college life or who you were and your childhood home life, whether it be spiritual, religious, sexuality. And my question to you, Calix, is for someone who may be going through this identity crisis of, I'm trying to be myself, yet I'm also in this other role, because we all just play roles in life. What advice would you give to someone who may be getting disowned by their parents, or coping with that, or struggling with fitting back in the space where they don't feel like they fit in?
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is that we know that this happens a lot, and I would just say, first of all, I understand how devastating that is, personally, and also just to recognize there's a lot of pain around that in our community, and that being the LGBTQ plus community. That being said, these tensions in families are very, very real, and families can quickly become a kind of unsafe emotional places where a lot of toxic things and dynamics can play out. And so I think what I would say to your question is that for young folks who are in this situation, being able to build out kind of a network or your own pod of support outside of your family is really, really important. That means that, you know, whether that's somebody who's a mentor, someone who is your chosen family, we use that term a lot, the chosen family, where it's like, okay, well, you know, my own sister is treating me in a way that doesn't feel very good, but these friends of mine are like really important, practically like family. So being able to build those ties in your community, in your school, in your workplace, because there are people who will validate you and there are people who will support you. And so being able to be okay with, all right, well, family right now isn't where I'm going to be able to feel loved and accepted, and being able to find that elsewhere is I think so vital. And also that's where a therapist can come in to be able to help you figure out, well, where are those ties that you can make? How do you build that? Especially if you're feeling very isolated and alone.
Thank you for that. And that's true. And I have one other scenario or question I'm going to ask, and dealing with stress. And then, Lexi, I would love to get into you talking more about this documentary. And then we also do have a question for you about how did it empower you. So I definitely want to hear about that. But Calix, my next question is...
real quick, is Jojo, were you trying to say something? I don't know if that's you on the...
Oh, no, I think... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just checking. All right, cool.
I was earlier. I definitely wanted to... I had a question as well.
Yes.
I just want to know, like, some people are having a hard time, like, during therapy. Well, not like during therapy, but like more so how to get therapy. If their parents are against it and they're not like old enough yet to get, you know, the therapy that they need. Do you have any advice on how you would go about it, or how you would be able to get therapy without like necessarily your parents knowing?
So each state has their own rules around what age you need to be as a minor in order to get therapy services. I do a lot of work in California, and there's certain things that someone who's over the age of, I believe, 12 or 13 is able to do in order to kind of get some of that support. I don't know how that works in all the other states, but what I can say is if you approach people in school, if you approach other people in other capacities, like, supportive organizations, at your school, you might be able to ask, well, what is a way that I can be linked to services? I think just not allowing the system of care to stop you from looking at different ways to get your needs met.
And I'm not sure if do you know any, or I guess free therapy or different services that maybe young people can access, say they can't afford therapy, or maybe they don't have like insurance? Do you know of any programs that people can get access to off the top of your head? Or
a lot of those programs are localized, where like maybe one city might have mental health dollars from the city that go to those kind of public programs, and another city doesn't have that. And so I do think that being able to utilize the internet, your friends, anyone around you who might have, you can ask your doctor, be like, hey, I'm trying to get hooked up to this. So what it really comes down to is being able to advocate for yourself and say, I'm going to do what it takes to get some support, because I don't need to be alone with these problems that I'm having.
No, that's true. And then I also know, Calix, that there's a coupon that Amwell is offering, that if you DM, I'm sorry, Jojo keeps getting kicked out. But I know that there's a coupon that if you DM Amwell or the Urban Health Media Project, I'm just going to confirm, maybe Calix, if you know which one, there is a discount on those services if someone was looking to get those today.
I'm seeing some resources being put in the chat as well, and I think that if you DM Urban Health Media Project, then you can talk about that on the back end to get more info on how to access that. And then I was also going to mention probably some resources. I think Pooja was going to be able to put up some resources on the post as well. So yeah.
Yeah, great. So we definitely will have those resources to people if they want some, or if you are looking, because once again, it is, there may be extra steps to get therapy. So in between that time, there are definitely resources that we'll give. And then Calix, I did want to ask you, again, going back to,
Sorry, I just thought of one. I'm so sorry. One more. I was going to just mention NAMI as a national organization, NAMI. NAMI is a great resource for group stuff and just in general, they're so helpful in terms of trying to locate some resources. So that's one, NAMI.org, NAMI.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. NAMI, M like Mary.
MAMI.
Mm-hmm.
Got you. Great.
National Association for Mental Illness.
NAMI. Great.
Perfect. Thank you to the person who just,
Yeah, thank you. I was about to type it. But yeah, thank you. And then also, I see someone here mentioning, the importance of a support network in college. Yeah, for me as well. Having a support system has definitely helped me. I know I haven't always been the most outspoken, but having really within the last year, forcing myself to be more vulnerable and finding someone to open up to and talk has helped me. And it did help me in just having at least one or two friends that I could trust. So I would definitely support that you're right, that a support network is definitely important. And then going into, this whole thing of people are busy and we're navigating our anxiety and, depression, and on top of that, stress. Do you have advice on managing stress or managing, when things get hard? I know a lot of times, often we may have unhealthy coping mechanisms. That may not, of course, be the best route to help us deal with our things. So just if you have any healthier methods to dealing with stress or anxiety that students can use.
Yeah, I think students today are I have so much empathy for the student that's supposed to be doing 50,000 things, right? Like, I think the first thing I would say is to recognize that we are living in a more is more culture, and it's okay to deny that culture. It is okay to say, when I say more is more, I mean, like, you know, you talk to people, I'm working 2 jobs, I'm like, you know, taking 6 classes instead of 4 classes. I'm also trying to like do a video project and learn how to like learn how to dance salsa, right? Like all these things. And while that's a lot of stuff that is wonderful, it's like we kind of, I just think that we're a part of a culture that sometimes just doesn't think about limitations and like, is that actually what you need? Like maybe what you need isn't more, to be more involved in things, but maybe it is to have some time to yourself, to read a book in the sunshine and drink a cup of coffee. Right? Like I think that there's a lot of pressure on young people to do. And what I would say is that, you know, that's yeah, somebody's saying that's very capitalist. I'm not going to get into that, but I will say that that there's a lot of politics around making sure that young people feel anxious. And that's why mental health therapists are always telling you, like, how are you carving out space to be a human being? How are you carving out space to like slow down? So balance is really important. I know it sounds so trite to just be like, oh, have a balanced life. But what I'm really trying to say is that it's okay to be revolutionary as a young person and say, this is the limit that I have, you know, like I can't do more than that. Or maybe I need to get help to get some aid for food aid so that I can figure out that can be a resource in my life versus just trying to work 3 jobs instead of 2. So these are the things. And I understand that anxiety is real. It's also manufactured too by the societal pressures around achievement.
Yeah, that's very true. And I can definitely say, for me, I had to step outside of that or really work to, you know, break out of that mold, because it's so hard, especially if you're someone who claims to be an overachiever in high school and then you get to college and, you know, you add more and more and more on your plate. And you're right, you know, it's definitely about shifting the narrative of success and what is successful. And Lexi, if you have any things you do to cope, that'd be great to share. I know we lost JoJo. I'm getting her back on. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely agree with everything that you guys are talking about. I mean, it's true. Like, you know, there's so much pressure on everything that we do, and the like social standard of what young people should be doing. And it definitely creates a negative annotation regarding young people and where they should be. And it's always like, oh, you could do this too. Oh, look at this person, they're doing that too. So it's kind of always the comparison. And I don't think social media helps with that at all, because we're kind of constantly comparing ourselves to other people on social media, and social media isn't a true representation of our lives. You know, we're not perfect. So I think that's something super important to remember, that social media is, you know, what we want people to see.
Yeah,
and it's
oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, you're fine.
I was just gonna say, you're never gonna show, my mom always says, you're never gonna show people the bad stuff. You're only gonna show them the good. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
I'm seeing so many things in the chat too. People have great recommendation, right? Like the meditation, all of it. The sleeping. I saw sleeping and nutrition.
And that's something I definitely agree with. I have, with my anxiety, as I say, I have gotten into mindfulness meditation and just breathing through it. That can just help you so much, just calming down, and you'll be able to make a better decision based off of that. Oftentimes I found out, like, before I even really understood my anxiety, and maybe, I'm not sure if you can share, Kayla, some tips or triggers for maybe realizing, wow, I'm anxious, because I'm not sure if anyone else felt like this, but as I was really exploring it, I didn't realize until midway through that I did something crazy, that I was anxious the whole time, and that if I would have just sat and taken a second, I wouldn't have done that. So maybe just, I don't know, realizing certain triggers along the way as you work out through that.
Yeah, the hard part about anxiety is that, or stress, right? When you're feeling it, is that it gets you into a loop where you're not even recognizing that, oh my gosh, I'm not really breathing right now, or I'm really tense, or that we become really desensitized to our nervous system that's firing up and saying, hey, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. And so one of the things I think is so simple is to just tell yourself, or tell someone who's asking something from you in an anxious moment, I need a moment. I need a minute. So like to think of what is the need right now? Like what is the pressure? Because usually if you ask yourself like, whoa, why am I so wired right now, right? Or why do I feel like I'm running at 100 miles an hour? It's really just needing to take a moment. You need a moment, because how are you gonna regulate anything to be able to think and respond to people if you're not like, wait a second, I gotta breathe. Yeah, right? And like do it. So you actually have to do it, and you can't get to the doing if you're not in that moment of, shoot, I need to slow my roll back here a little bit. Yeah. And so I'm gonna give it to you again. It's, I need a minute, or I need a moment, or give me a second. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice, because I know in the past I would just, you just keep going, you keep trying to work through it, and then as you work through it, it's like it's just getting worse and worse and worse.
But the thing is that when you take that moment, what will happen is your response, your ability to think and then make a good choice is going to just escalate. So it's worth it.
Yeah,
Okay, I saw another question pop up. Sorry to interrupt you.
Go for it.
So this one is, does social media increase the pressure on young people and their sense of feeling accomplished? How can young people find the balance with social media? So personally, I'm 18 years old. I'm still in high school. I graduate in like 14 days or something, and I'm going off to college. So on behalf of young people, I can attest and say that social media does impact how you view your own accomplishments, because it's very easy to fall into the niche of comparing yourself and what you've achieved to what other people are achieving. For example, I got accepted into the school that I wanted to go to, and then a bunch of other people in my grade also got accepted to amazing schools. And it's very easy to sit there and compare and say, wow, I could have done better, or I could have done more. Oh, they did better than me, and have a very negative outlook on it. But for me, I realized that I needed to be proud of my own accomplishments and realize what's best for me. I'm making these decisions for myself, not to please people around me. And kind of, I kind of reflect and say, okay, this is where I was 6 months ago. Look where I am now. I'm still making that progress, because I still battle mental illness every day. It'll never go away, but look at all the progress I'm making. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, I think that's very true. I know personally, I had to be real with myself and say, I think I'm addicted to social media, and social media is really crumbling my mental health, and I had to take a total break from it. And I think the strength in saying that, because oftentimes we say, oh, it's just a like, it's just a repost, it's just a tweet. But is it? I don't know. I feel like it's like it is that, but it also can mean so much more, because we have put so much meaning behind it, and we have to acknowledge that and maybe sometimes take a step back. So definitely. And I also see really quick, just some other, a lot of, for the anxiety, a lot of breathing techniques, a lot of meditation, a lot of grounding. I see eating healthy. Yeah. So
all of those things are great.
Yeah.
All of those things are great. And that's why I was saying, take a minute, take a second, because then you'll remember, oh, I need to eat something. Oh, I might need a nap. I might need, something to calm myself right now.
Yes, definitely. And then before we wrap things up, because I know we started late, and Calix and Lexi, thank you so much for staying on later.
No problem.
Lexi, just really quick, if you could just talk more about the documentary and your experience with that, and how that empowered you to move forward, and how you're doing with the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so honestly, the documentary was kind of like a dream come true, because, after just kind of to sum it up really quick for you guys, when I was in 8th grade, I really struggled with the people around me. I was bullied a lot in high school. I had recently been diagnosed with an illness, and I was still in the closet because I am a member of the LGBTQ plus community. So there was a lot going on. So I did attempt suicide, and I am a suicide survivor. Um, and that all of that information was then leaked to my community and school. So kind of a lot going on. A lot of my privacy was violated. But several years later, I reached out to Connecting the Dots, and it is an amazing organization. As far as filming it, I went to a school about 3 hours away. I had never met these people in my life. I was terrified because I was going to be so vulnerable. And Film Block just put the link in the chat. So www.connectingthedotsfilm.com. So if you want to watch it, you can go there. But I was terrified because I was sitting in a room with 7 other people that I'd never met in my life. And I was going to talk about like my deepest, darkest secrets. But the amazing thing was everyone was so open and so honest that it was just like 3 hours of us just like crying together and feeling great and just being so open and honest. And it was honestly one of the most surreal things that I've ever done and something that I am so proud to be a part of. So I would highly recommend that you watch it. There are a lot of different outlooks. It is not all about the darkest, deepest moments of depression and anxiety. It shows a lot of different ways that you can cope. It's not just filmed. I'm from Indiana. It's filmed in several different parts of the world. So several different cultures and different aspects of mental health. I can only say positive things about it. So
Thank you. I'm definitely excited to check that out, and I think that's amazing that you're a part of that.
Incredible.
yeah, I mean, I feel it was very hard to be vulnerable, but I am so glad that I did it now. So definitely worth it.
And I agree the vulnerability, like I said earlier, it's a hard thing to do, but
Yeah.
take that first step, especially with, as you dive into talking about your mental health and you see, because of people like you, since you're sharing your stories, it helps other people realize that I'm not alone. And I think that's the main thing is we connect back to social media and just in general of this whole technology and isolation of how a lot of people can feel alone. So that's, I would say, why community is important. Why watching these documentaries is also important, and talking to people and realizing that you're not alone. And it does lead me into one final question we do have about mental health in regards to LGBTQ and how that can be harder and for people with LGBTQ and just wondering, or for friends, how can we support our friends who may be going through a lot, who may be struggling more with their mental health? Because if we ask the question of why are minorities, why are people who are part of the LGBTQ community having higher rates of mental health, I think that we can maybe assume why, because life is more difficult, because of society, because of these standards and measures that we're breaking down. But as far as being friends, and if we're talking about community and peer-to-peer, how can we support our friends more? How can we support those going through things more, going through their mental health more? Because we may not be experts, but we can definitely be a lending ear, a lending hand.
So I want to plug a resource, and then I want to turn it over to Lexi, because I feel like, so the Trevor Project is a great resource for LGBTQ folks, and it has there's a plethora of information on that. Again, that's the Trevor Project. So check that out, and then I have thoughts, but I definitely want to hear Lexi first.
Yeah, so it's the biggest thing for me is be very observant of your friends, especially if you know that they could be or may be struggling. Depression and anxiety, mental health in general, often show signs before it gets to an extreme point. So if you start to notice that they're isolating or, talking about self-harm, talking about suicide, expressing suicidal thoughts, joking about suicide, I mean, any of those signs, definitely get help. Tell a trusted adult, tell someone that you contact a school counselor, tell someone who can help them get the situation, because one thing that I've learned is you can't always do it yourself. You can't bear that burden because you're not a professional. So observe your friends, make sure they're doing okay, check in on them if they seem to be a little off, and then if you really need to report it, and it sounds scary, and it can be sometimes, but it's for the better. So make sure you're checking up on all your friends. That's my biggest advice.
Yeah, I can't, Lexi said it beautifully. I can't say
Thank
better
you.
than that, but I will include, like, if you are an ally or a friend of somebody and you're concerned, say, hey, I've been thinking about you. Sending that text to say, and you know, you don't have to be like, you know, instructive and be like, I'm going to go with you to sign up after that, you know, it's more just showing that concern, right? Because when you're in that really vulnerable place that feels really scary, you know, having somebody actually reach out and tell you, I'm thinking about you. I've been kind of noticing that, you know, I don't know, something seems off. Are you okay? You know, sometimes are you okay can feel a little direct, but there's many ways to just send that care, and open the door to conversation. You know, hey, I noticed, like, you know, something seems different. Is everything okay? You know, those kind of questions. When people hear that, when LGBTQ folks hear that, oh, somebody cares about me, you know, there's a lot that can happen from that.
And I even personally, for my friends, I'll even be like, hey, do you want to study together? Hey, do you want to go get coffee after school? Just to kind of
Mm-hmm.
make sure that we're spending time together, make sure that they have someone that they can talk to, even if they choose not to. So it's them. You can't control what they're going to tell you and what they're not, but letting them know that you love them and that you're there for them is super important.
Yes, that's honestly everything that you both just said was everything I'll say. I know personally, I'm not that social, but I even go out my way to like reach out to my friends at least once a week, and we do like a little check-in, because I'm one of the non-social friends that I don't really like to talk, and if I'm going through a lot, I won't say much. So my friends who just randomly reach out once a week, like they'll just shoot me a text, hey, how are you? Or they'll just randomly call me. And even if we are not on the phone for that long, just knowing that someone cares, or just those little reach outs, they really do make a difference. So everything, I definitely agree. It definitely does. And maybe everyone in the live afterwards, we'll all go shoot our friends a text and be like, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
Everything fine? Because people definitely need that. And it's always the times that you're randomly thinking about them. They'll be like, oh, this was the perfect time for reaching out. Thank you so much.
Especially during
sure.
the pandemic where there's been so much isolation. I think that's more important than ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting close to 8. Thank you guys so much for staying on later. Thank you so much to everyone in the live. And we'll be back next week with Dr. Calix once again, as we talk more about people of color and mental health in that realm. Thank you so much to Lexi and Calix once again. Thank you to everyone. There will be resources. We'll also be posting this live onto the Instagram page shortly after. So please stay tuned. We'll see you next week. Thank you guys so much once again. If you have any questions, you guys can DM Urban Health Media. Yes, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.